Thank you
for being here.
for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. First of all, forward by Nick Saban.
We grew up together.
You and Nick Saban.
3 miles apart in 2 coal camps, Worthington and Farmington. I grew up in Farmington, and my dad had a little furniture store. My grandfather had a little grocery store.
Right.
He grew up 3 miles over 2 hills in Worthington, and his dad had a little golf filling station. Mother had a little Dairy Queen.
That's wild.
It is.
And was he a baller when he was a kid? Was he a great football player?
All state.
He was all state. Did you play?
I played. I went to WVU on a football scholarship.
Okay.
That's how I got to college.
Wow.
So then I got hurt in college, and we've just been good friends all of our life. And his dad, I played for his dad in Little League,
Right.
His dad was tough. Both of our dads always had one saying: not good enough. He's never bought a black car. He's never bought a black car because every time a black car came in to get washed and waxed, he had to wax it twice because his dad didn't like the streaks in it. So he's never had a black car since. And my dad they were tough.
Yeah.
Tough cold.
That doesn't sound like a fun story. That sounds terrible.
It's real. No.
No.
We learned.
Yeah.
We
No,
learned.
you did.
We had to get it.
Yeah, wash the car.
You had to get it. You had to work, and
Sure.
my grandmother, she had 3 rules. We lived between the railroad tracks and Buffalo Creek. We had a 3-room garage apartment, and we lived beside my grandparents, had a little house. And for some reason, they all knew that when they jumped the train to go to Mama Kay's, my grandmother, she would feed anybody, she'd keep anybody. And she made us, there's 20 little grandkids. We all lived real close together.
Right.
And she made us whitewash the basement every year to keep it clean and neat because someone needed a place to stay. No.
Did anyone ever stay there?
Hold on. Oh, we had Wilbar Willie.
Oh, sure. Sure, yeah.
Peg Leg Peggy.
Peg Leg Peggy.
D. Lloyd. We had
Right.
them all. And every 6 weeks, I lose them, and Mama Kay said, I said, hey, Mama Kay, where'd they go? They're on a toot, honey. They'll be back in 6 weeks. But she took care of everybody. There was no social services. So I learned that you had to have rules. They come down, and she lined them up. She said, okay, here's what we're going to do.
Right.
You can stay with Mama Kay. I'm going to feed you and take care of you. Nice place to stay.
And they would do it.
You can't cuss, you can't drink, and you have to work. So those are the rules. I grew up with those rules thinking everybody had to work.
You can't drink and you can't cuss.
Not with 20 little kids running around.
Right. I don't think I would have made it.
We still learn how. You definitely wouldn't have stayed overnight.
I'd have been, you'd find I'd be stuck head first into a sump pump. I'd be done. They'd be all down. And that upbringing, it's such an interesting background, because the book is called Dead Center.
Right.
And you could look at it as this is I'm dead center or the center is dead. Which, in your mind, is the correct interpretation?
Well, my mind is dead center, but you're not wrong on the center is dead. It's not a crowded place.
Right.
In the political world today.
Would there be a place for Joe Manchin? Well, certainly in West Virginia. If you were going to run today in West Virginia, you would run as a Republican, I'm assuming.
No.
You would not?
No. I said this. The Democrats were upset with me.
Yes.
Okay? But the Republicans wouldn't like me any better. Because I just couldn't conform to, the other side's evil, the other side's our enemy, and we hate them, we got to defeat them. Mm-hmm. I didn't get involved in public service. I wanted to do things. And I looked at everyone being my friends with different ideas.
Right.
And I tried to get in the middle and make things happen. So I probably signed on more pieces of legislation that have been passed in 15 years because I was always in that middle.
You were the guy. You were the belle of the ball. You were the one that if they could get to you, they could make this happen.
Well,
say you're the belle of the ball. Say it.
It wasn't a pretty ball.
No.
Here's the thing. They would come to me. If a friend would come from the Republican side, always Ted Cruz.
Okay.
Ted. I know Ted.
Sure.
Okay.
Great guy.
Ted would come over. Ted's very smart and very articulate. And he said, Joe, I got something I want you to be with. I think it's a perfect bill for you. And I'd say, Ted, I'm happy to work with you. I'm happy to work with everybody. And then I look at the bill and I'd say, well, it's just not right. It's not everything you said it was, Ted.
Right.
And I said, Ted, if you can let me make some edits to it and addendums to it, and then it'd be fine. I'm happy to sign on to it and we'll try to pass it. And if I got 2 answers from anybody on the other side,
right.
2 answers would be this way. I can't change anything. It is what it is. That's a political statement. I don't get upset about that. At least I know where they're coming from. They want to make a political statement. Let them do it. Or he says, yeah, Joe, go ahead and make some. You want to get something passed, let's do it.
Right.
So once you read the language, just can't, you got to be friends. You got to talk. You got to understand each other. You've got to want to get things done.
But there's a conundrum here.
Okay.
What you represented, what the Democrats wanted to pass in the audacity of hope, right? They couldn't pass because you represented someone who wanted to temper maybe some of their legislation, but they needed you because they didn't have the numbers. Isn't that the conundrum of a Joe Manchin? Is that we need him to be on our team, but we don't need him to interfere with our design.
Correct. But, they get upset and got frustrated with me. And I said, let me tell you something. I have been voting this way all my life. I've been involved since 1982 in public service. Mm-hmm. And I've always looked for, how do you get things done? You can't do them from the extreme right and extreme left. You don't run your life that way. You don't run your businesses that way. You usually got to find a way to maneuver to get to the next.
But so that, in 1982, maybe that's the case. But as it plays out, the idea of moderation. Donald Trump didn't win on moderation, and he's certainly not governing from, let alone a coherent place. His is, I'm going to put on tariffs now. It's volatile, it's mercurial, it's impulsive, it goes against a certain...
It's not normal, John. This is not normal what we're seeing
But
today.
that's my point, is the antidote to these last, I don't know how many years, it feels like 100, this idea that you're talking about, the sort of the gentleman senator. Is that even alive in this time?
My state of West Virginia, wonderful, beautiful state and great people, and I'm so thankful I was born and raised there. They were 100% Democrats, 75% registered Democrats. Mm-hmm. From the Great Depression, from the 30s, and I guess they said, why are you a Democrat, Joe? I says, well, I guess my grandfather was very thankful that FDR gave him a chance to feed their children and live. So that's who we were. And John Kennedy, West Virginia was his stomping ground. Without West Virginia, he'd never became president.
Right.
He had, I'll never forget, John, one time, they were all campaigning. All the Kennedys were there. And my mother...
How old are you?
I was a baby.
These stories. My pappy was with FDR, and then we were washing a basement, and...
Well, I was 12 years old.
When Kennedy came?
When 1960, I was turning 13. I was born in 47.
Right.
Okay. So here's the Kennedy family, and my parents are all excited.
Right.
We're a Catholic family, ethnic Catholic family. My father's Italian. My mother was Czechoslovakian. Okay. So they're all from Eastern Europe, and here we were. So they got all excited. I never seen them get that excited about politics before. And they said, this young Catholic Irish person's going to come, and ethnic, he's coming. And they all got excited. So I got excited. What the heck? So
and that got you into it?
That got me thinking, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you could do for your country. I always thought that public service is the noblest of all professions, and if you got involved, you had to do something.
Right. And correct.
So I'll never forget, we were watching television, little black and white television, John,
right.
And it had to be Walter Cronkite saying, it's been said that if John Kennedy becomes president, the Pope will run the country. And I looked at my mom and I said, boy, Mom, they don't know the Catholics we know. Because you couldn't tell a Catholic anything.
Right.
So anyway, I've had a real unbelievable childhood with, I was a privileged child.
Right.
3-room garage apartment, why are you privileged? Not a big house.
Right.
Between the tracks and the railroad and the creek. Not a fancy neighborhood. Well, why? I had unconditional love.
Right.
There was not a day in my life that I knew that my parents and my grandparents didn't love me unconditionally, but they expected me to return that, and basically by being accountable and responsible.
Right.
They always said words have meaning, and those meanings sometimes have actions and reactions, and you'll be responsible for both.
Right. So
in
your mind, so those are, grounding lessons and common sense.
Yeah.
But doesn't everybody think that their sense is common sense?
Sure.
I'll look at my background and I'll come up with the same sort of foundational reasoning that you are. I was raised in a house, we struggled. My parents got divorced. They worked hard. But I learned I had to work hard and I had to, get what I wanted and all that. But those are how you translate that into policy is where government comes in. My concern sometimes with these sort of ideas that common sense is moderation is that sometimes policy, like FDR's, like Social Security, like Medicare, like Medicaid, that's not moderation. It's solving a problem as directly as you can. That the art of compromise sometimes dilutes the solutions that you want to bring to people's lives because you're in it for public service. And I worry that that ethos dilutes things to where we get unsatisfactory outcomes.
Well, the shutdown right now.
If that's, like, you know. Yeah.
I never voted for a shutdown. A shutdown saying that you can't do your job, so we're just going to close the doors.
Right.
That's first. So anybody that votes for a shutdown is not willing to put the time and effort to reach across the aisle. What's our big differences? This shutdown's based all around pre-COVID, 2020 and before. Where were we at that time? COVID comes. I'll never forget, when we first were told, Dr. Fauci came and told us that in all 100 senators what was coming. We weren't sure about this. The only thing I knew about a pandemic, I heard my grandparents talking about, my grandmother was talking about her father died in the 1918 influenza. That's all I knew about a pandemic.
How old are you?
I got.
All I know about the Civil War is what my uncle said.
So that's what happened. And
right. I understand that, but do you get my point? So in your book, you go through a lot of legislation.
Yeah. Yep.
And the choices that you made in defense of moderation, I would say to you, I don't know that West Virginia is a moderate state. It voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, who is not a moderate president.
3 times.
3 times.
Over 40. He beat Hillary by 41 points.
Right.
He beat Joe. He got lost to Joe Biden.
But not in West Virginia.
No, he still won by 40 points.
Right.
And he won again in 2024. And I've told my Democrat friends, they said, Joe, what happened to the West Virginia Democrats? And I said, nothing. They want to know what happened to the Washington Democrats. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I can tell you why the union coal miners and all the factory workers that I grew up with, where they are today, why they switched and started voting Republican. They believe that the Democrat Party in Washington basically spends more resources, effort, and time on able-bodied people that don't work or won't work than you do those who do.
Right.
That was it.
It makes sense. It's just not true. I mean, I'm only saying it like that's just not like even. And I feel your thing, but like that's a caricature of social programs, and this really gets into the thing that boggles my mind. Government is there to step in on market failures, and even food stamps or EBT is kind of a subsidy to Kraft and Nabisco and all kinds of other companies.
Sure.
But our healthcare system, the market has failed in these areas. And when people say they spend more money on welfare queens and all that than they do on people, that's just not true. And the percentage of children and elderly and people on disabilities and people that work their asses off for a living that don't make enough money, that still have to apply for government programs to help them just to get by, is astronomically larger than this so-called moocher class. So if that's their conventional wisdom, they're just wrong.
No, I've said that.
But that's so how do you do politics on a failed premise?
Let's take the welfare system. I've tried for the last 5 years. I had one person who's bright as could be. I says, I want to change the cliff to a slope. That's all. The cliff is this. I'll use $25,000. You make $1 over $25,000, you lose all your benefits. Okay? So, but you stop working right there. Or you work under the table so it doesn't show up. Do whatever you can. Why can't we make that into a slope and let them work into a livable wage and give them assistance all the way up? It's the cheapest thing we could ever do. Pride and dignity back in a person's life. Child care. I got eviscerated on child care, and I said, I'm all for child care. Give it to the people that need it. And most of them are in the income bracket right above welfare, 26, 25, 26, 30, 35 up to 50, 60, 70,000. Most of them are single households. Most of them are female, and they're trying to raise a child. They're working. We should be dedicating our resources trying to help them lift themselves up. We were giving it to $400,000 income.
But they'll call you a socialist. And then, you know what hasn't stopped are the subsidies.
They can't call me one.
But you know what I mean.
I know what you're saying.
In this country, if you subsidize corporations, or if you take out and capital gains are taxed less than regular income, that's just standard common sense capitalist. But the taker class must be penalized. All the fraud is apparently in food stamps and welfare, and not in a $1 trillion defense budget and subsidies that go to wealth. So I'm just trying to find common ground, right? If we're working off a flawed premise, does the idea of moderation and common sense, to my mind, common sense isn't the ACA. Common sense is healthcare, like directly, single payer. Like that feels moderate to me. And in the rest of the world, it's moderate. So how do you square that? And I don't mean to, this is not aimed at you. It's a frustration with what I hear back from. It blames people for their own poverty.
Let me tell your audience about the working conditions in the United States Congress. Okay. It's the most hostile environment you've ever encountered. You go to work every day, and the person on the other side of the aisle is trying to get you defeated. So you're going to work every day and have a coworker trying to get you defeated or fired. So that'd be like your other host coming on, saying bad things about the other one, trying to get the other one thrown off.
Yeah. Or it's called show business.
Well, that's what we're in, show business. I think you're right.
Yes.
And so, only thing I said when I first got there, I told Harriet Reid, I said, Harriet, I'm not going to raise money to be used against friends of mine on the Republican side or Democrat side, or whether I like them or not. I try to like everybody. But I can tell you where I come from. If you try to get me fired every day at work, we're going to have a little talk after work tonight. Okay? Just doesn't work that way. And that's just the way things are back home. We settle our differences. But here, I said, I can't genuinely go to a person and say, will you help me with this piece of legislation? It really would help people in my state. They're going to say, what the hell, Joe? I'm not going to do that. You've just been out, you come out campaigned against me. You gave money to an opponent that was running when I got reelected. You were out against me. Why am I going to work with you now? So it gets divided deeper and deeper. So both sides are blaming everybody, and they want you to hate the other side. Don't just fear them, but hate them. And you've got to defeat them. Don't just beat them, but defeat them. Everything they're doing, they're breaking down anyone participating. The hardest thing I've got today is to get good quality people involved in public service. I'm not going to go through that, they tell me. I said it's a small price to pay for the quality and opportunity of life we have here in this great country.
But as we look for a way out politically, the answer feels like it can't lie in if they were nicer to each other. It feels like the answer has to lie outside of Washington in a battle of ideas, this consent of the governed. And that's how Trump is governing. Does the way he governs give you pause in that that's not how he's governing?
Not at all. No. The thing that I've said to my Democrat friends, the mistake was made on the border. The asylum should have never been done. We've never done asylum at the border. Now, the Democrats can say, well, we're compassionate. We wanted to do that because the world was in a flux. People were leaving, going everywhere, trying to find some reprieve. But so we made a mistake and say, we want to work with President Trump. We want to have a secured border. And please, will he work with us and have a legal immigration program that people can come for the right reason? People can stay here that have worked here. No crime. They're doing it for the same reason our grandparents came. They want a better life. We can make that work. In 2013, we had a bill, bipartisan. You would not have an immigration problem today. We passed it in the Senate. 68 senators voted for it, Democrat and Republican. It went to the House. My good friend John Boehner couldn't put it on the floor. I kept begging him, John, please put it on, it'll pass.
He was a Republican from Ohio.
Eric Cantor was a Republican from Richmond, just got beat.
That's right.
Because by a Tea Party insurgent. By a Tea Party that said he's for amnesty. He wants to let people stay here that came here illegally. Well, people are coming here to have a life, trying to find a place. Have a proper way to get them here. And how about the dreamers? Babies that were brought here and don't know how they got here. This is the only country they know. They fight in our wars for us. They're educated. They're educating other Americans. And they're not legal. That's ridiculous. We can fix that. And we had it fixed.
Can we?
Well, we had it fixed.
Well,
we had it fixed.
You talk about 2013. Right before the election, Lankford comes up with a compromise with all of
they ate him alive.
The Senate. They ate him alive.
Yeah.
Trump didn't want to do it. So that's
a shame.
My point is the way, because we keep talking about what's the way for Democrats. Is it Mamdani? Is it being more center left? Is it being more moderate? And isn't the way to just be honestly more responsive to what the real problems and needs are of the people you purport to represent, and then fight like a mother, fight like you were brought up to fight, and don't.
When I was governor, I asked for a waiver on my welfare program.
Right.
And I told Mike Leavitt, and that time George W.
Right.
Okay. And I says,
compassionate conservatives.
I says, give me a waiver.
Yeah.
I says, I don't have enough money to take care of healthy poor people that could be working if I could help them get back to work, as I do have a moral responsibility and compassion to help those who can't. Right. I've got a lot of poor people that depend on us. He gave me a waiver. I had that waiver and I tried it. I put mountain choices in, teaching people how to work, how to get skill sets back, boom, get back into society. It was going good, but there was resistance because when you're giving things away, it's hard to take them back. It's hard. Like today, the health system is broken. That's why they're fighting right now. These subsidies help people, an awful lot of people. But what happened, the subsidies weren't that great before COVID.
Right.
We've expanded them, try taking them back. Doesn't work that well.
Right.
You've got to change the system. But anyway, they took it away from me when the Obamas came in. And I said, well, why? I said, all I'm asking for is let me have the money I need to take care of the people that need it the most. And I'll help the other people help themselves. And I got chastised for that one.
Do you still, with your experience, believe in the design of our government as currently constituted as being a productive avenue to which to address the things that you are?
I do. I protect the filibuster with my
you still believe
every breath in my body, because it's the only thing that makes you and I in the Senate. If you're in the majority, you give me a voice. I'm a minority.
Right.
If you're in
the House has no measures for its strict majoritarian.
And George Washington was trying to explain to Thomas Jefferson.
How old are you?
I love history.
All right.
I like history.
Dead center with a forward by Nick Saban. A fascinating conversation, and I really appreciate you having it. And come back and see us again.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Focus on with Joe Manchin.